Morning, everybody. So this is I'm going to try to keep it short to about half an hour video on how to approach doing this type of setup. So similar to before, except this time instead of actually having separate planes, what we're doing is we're projecting the eyes, and in this case the eyes, and then I'm also projecting the eyelids as well, so that we can move the eyes underneath the eyelids onto the geometry. So this is a little bit different because with the other approach I was showing you guys, that was actually just on a plane, and then that plane was put on top of the geometry. Now the benefit of that is that we can actually see what the eyes are doing. Now this is going to be a little bit different because we won't be able to until render time, although we will be able to see the controls. So just to kind of show you what I'm talking about, we're going to be using these projection nodes. So each eye has 4 projection nodes, but you're probably wondering, well, I only see 2. That's because the actual placement node, I'm actually controlling 4 projection nodes with 1 placement node, and I'll explain this in a second. And then we have our left and right controls, so we can see kind of what's happening with these controls. You can also make up and down controls too. I didn't, just because of time constraints. And then we have our blink controls, and again, this is just an overall blink, although you could do a left and right, like upper and lower lid, like have a lot more control if you wanted to, but again, I wouldn't overkill it. And basically this is all being connected through a blend, a redshift blend material. So we're going to set this up not on this object, on a simpler version, just because the network actually got quite large if we were to look at the network here, because of all of the different substance materials that each material needs to have. Because the important thing, and the reason why we're doing it this way as opposed to the other way is completely viable, but in this case we wanted to be able to see the normal map and the reflection and basically have the eyes appear as if, you know, it is literally painted on, so it has all of the same materialistic properties, which means that we're going to have a base layer, which is the blue. We're going to have duplicate that entire network. So if we were to look at this here, so we have our blend material, and then if we pull out, so you can see it starts getting complex. Where is that other one? Then we have our base material. So this is the original redshift material that has just the color on it. Now this material obviously has all of the different maps. It has your glossiness, it has your specular, has your Lambert, what is that? Lambert, has your ambient occlusion. I guess these weren't labeled when they were brought into Redshift. It has your height, right? So it's everything that defines that material. So when we look at it, you know, the blue, you can see the scratches, and basically it's everything, you know, have that nice metallic look to it. So it's everything that defines that material. So if we want this material to carry on into each of these projections, so again the eyes and then the lids, we need to duplicate that material for each of these components. So in the end, I'll have 5 duplicates of that material with all of its network components. Again, 1 for each eye and then 1 for each lid. Which is why this actually ends up looking more complicated than it actually is. It's not, because it's really just those projection nodes for the eyes that really matter. And it's how it connects into this blend material. So if we look over here at the blend material, again we have our base color, we have our left and right eye projections, and then we have our left and right eye lids. It's probably better to do this way too, just so you can actually go in and add some asymmetry into the motion. Is this the F check? Let's see, where did this one go? That's it. Yeah, so you can have a little bit of asymmetry, right? So you can have one blink blinking first, you can offset the eyes. And being on projection nodes, you can also, I wonder why I can't drag around in here. Anyhow, you can also go in and grab the actual projection node too and slide it over the face, which I'm doing here too. So with each left and right movement, I'm also shifting the projection node a little bit left or a little bit right. And again, it loosens things up so it doesn't look so rigid. Otherwise, why go through the hassle of doing this? So we can animate those projection nodes too. And then eventually, all this stuff gets parented into your head control. So it just moves with whatever the head geometry is. Alright, so we're going to approach how to set this up, but on a more basic version, just so we don't have to worry about all these extra nodes. The process would be the same. So I'm going to go into another version of Maya. So let me just launch another Maya here. And while that's launching, let's just look at Photoshop and see what we have here. Actually, not necessarily Photoshop. Let's just take a look at the images that I saved out. So source images. Alright, so we got the eyes. Alright, that's opening up. Alright, so basically in Photoshop I've created my left and right eye. The center number 3 is basically where the eyes are pointing forward. Essentially I just want to create a direct connection between my slider and the animated texture. I don't want to do any set-driven key, just a direct connection. So basically when my slider is at 3, it's going to be neutral. If I slide it towards 1, it'll go to the left, and if I slide it towards 5, it'll go to the right. And again, we saw you get a nice smooth transition. I mean, the more you have, the smoother it would be. And then with the lids, basically 0, you know what, I did have it a little bit better where I had one above 1, or wait, no, I had one extra one in for 4, because I could have actually gone from 0 to 5, where 0 is nothing. But I was kind of doubting myself before I actually hooked it up. So basically, if we look at the alphas here, 0 is black, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, basically it goes into a full blink. And again, the more you have, the smoother the motion would be. I wouldn't do overkill though, just nice, quick, cute movements is fine. It's a bit more animated that way. Forget these old ones, I took those out, but I kept them just in case. But you can see though, I do have the texture, and then I have an alpha. Now the eye only needs one alpha because, it's actually, the pupil is moving within the shape. But with the lids, because we're going to project this back on top of the eye geometry, I need the animated sequence, and I also need the alpha as its own path as well. So as the geometry that will be visible will be white, and everything else will be black. Alright, so let's go and bring this in and set this up. So I'm going to create a sphere. And let me just go into my other Maya and just kill the render window, just because this computer, I found out it is. All this stuff eats up my RAM, so let me just go over here. I think it's gone. Alright, so we're good. Alright, so I got my geometry. I'm going to just create a very simple, I'm not going to make a pretty render of this, I just want to go through the process of connecting everything. So I'm going to start by just creating a redshift material. So go to my redshift menu. And I'm also going to need a redshift blend node. Which I'm staring right at. Sorry, I'm just waking up, so bear with me. So redshift, I'm probably calling it the wrong name. So what are we here? Subsense. Material blender, here it is right here. Right underneath the, okay, that's fine. Might as well label these as you go, so you get good things. This will be our base material. This will be whatever it's going to go on to. So if it's the head, we'll call it head. And in the base material, I'll throw a color, just so you have your bump map and everything like that, and that's cool. So let me see here. We're going to create a ramp. Let's create a ramp for this. And I'll go with a gradient of some kind. So let's go with a nice bright color. Alright, so I got some kind of weird ramp color going on. And let's see, so I put it on there. There we go. Actually, I do want it at the default. There we go. And this is going to go into the material blender. There we go. So let me just put it into here. And then that goes on. Now, as soon as we do this, though, we're going to lose the color, but it's there. So if I render it out, we can see clearly it's there. So let me just go into my redshift. That's interesting. Did I lose my license? Is it because I have two Mayas open? Odd. Okay, well it's just going to be watermarked because I only unfortunately have about 15 minutes to do this. So, could be because I have two Mayas open, is it giving me the watermark? But anyhow, I'm going to have to look into this because obviously it was just working just shortly. Just the other day, yesterday, when I rendered this out. Alright, sorry. Okay, so next thing I want to do is bring in the eyes and the eyelids. So to do this, I'm going to go into, hit tab, and type in file. Now we're not using a texture. In this case we're going to be using projections. I'm not sure if you've covered projections. It's something I used to talk about in systems all the time, but just the last 2 to 3 years we've kind of avoided it just because it usually takes up an entire class on how to explain it, and it's not used very often. So it's kind of one of those lost things, I guess, in the workflow. Let me open this up. So there you go. So what we do have is our projection. So we have our file texture. We have the file texture's placement node. We have a placement node for the projection. Now this placement node is what we actually see in the viewport. And then we have the projection. This is what gets connected into whatever the material we're using. So I'm going to create just another, and let me just duplicate. Well, I'll just create another viewer material to connect this. Now, if we were doing this for real, what I would do is I would select these guys with all of its connections, like the bump maps and all those different things, and I would go up to Edit, Duplicate Shading Network, and that will duplicate all of the connections for me. But because I'm not dealing with bump and all those other things, I'm just going to create brand new ones for each of these. Alright, so let me grab the eye and I'll just show you what we need to do with some of these nodes before we can actually go too far. So I'm going to grab this file texture and load it up, and this will be the left and right eye. We're going to turn on Use Sequence, and then we're going to click and delete the expression because we want to manually control this value. I'm going to take this projection and we're just going to drag and drop the projection node into the diffuse. Now, so we can see this, I'm going to put it onto the material. Now, I guess technically this is one way we could see at least one of the eyes doing something, is you can just throw it on there, but again, I wouldn't worry too much about it. There we go. So right now we've got this projection node, which is down here. Let me move it outside of the jump. There we go. And basically this is what I would just grab and move and animate the eye around with. And it projects, and it's projecting right through to the other side, so we're going to get around the edges, you know, this kind of psychedelic thing going on, which is kind of neat. I wonder if we could use that for one of these projects, perhaps. Which we don't want, obviously. So what we do want to do is just have one, and then we want it transparent outside of that texture. So to do that, we need to go over to the File Textures Placement node, and we're going to turn off Wrap U and V. Now that's just going to give us one texture, right? And then the next thing I want to do is just make sure the color outside of that texture is going to be transparent. And I believe that needs to be black. So let's go, to do this we have to go into the file. We're going to go under color balance. And under the color gain here, or sorry, under default color, that's what we're seeing. This gray is this default color. I'm just going to switch this over to black. Now if this is to render out, well, because we're using the alpha, it doesn't actually matter. There's no transparency actually on this one. But on the alpha, this is very important because whatever this color is going to determine whether it's going to be transparent or opaque. And the way this works is really actually the opposite of how you would imagine it works. So, you know, in the real world, in the alphas, that would be transparent. This would be opaque, but this is old school Maya, which seems to always be reverse of what you would think. So anyhow, I'll just make it black for now. Next thing we're going to do is, alright, so we got this. So this is all good. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a slider for this. So let's do this. And no, to be honest, I created the sliders at the end last time, but this time, just for speed, I'm going to do this just for the one side. So I got a slider. I'm going to go into my front view, and I'm just going to create a 5-unit box around it. So create CP curve tool, option box. I'm just going to make sure it's a linear curve. And again, 5 units, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. And you know, you call it box or whatever. You can call this left eye CTL. And then what we probably want to do too is put some limit information in here. So we're going to limit this, the translates on the eye slider. And we want to just match our image sequence. So our image sequence goes from 1 to 5. So we're going to type in 1 to 5. And then I just want to lock and hide everything else. Maybe freeze transformations to... Yeah, I won't be able to freeze trans, just because that's okay. Let me just freeze the rotations at least. Freeze, I'm staring right at it. There we go. That one. That's okay. We're just going to lock and hide everything except for the one we just limited. So lock and hide. So we got the slider that's only able to move in this one direction. In order to move it though, right? Because now I can't move it. Oh yeah, let me take that. Let me take both of these and group them together. And I'm doing this right at origin, right? So that this now stays, no matter what size that is, that'll stay 1 to 5 no matter what, because it inherits the transformations of the group. And I'm going to call this one left underscore I group. In the box, I'm going to go into its shape node, object display, and just set that to template, so I can't select that. Alright, now let me go up to the group. Put this over top of the head. Scale it down maybe a bit. Alright, so we've got this slider. I'm going to duplicate it. And this one's going to be rotated up, so these will be our eye blinks eventually. So 90 degrees. Don't worry about freezing trans on the group. Oh yeah, actually, let me go blink starts open, so it's going to be blinking down. So I'm going to, usually I like the sliders to match the direction things are actually moving in. Alright, and that needs to be set to 3, because 3 is where it's in the middle. So left, right, and then 3 is the middle. Alright, and let's make some connections. So this is going to be a direct connection, so connection editor. This is going to be connected into the file texture. And remember, we removed that expression, so wait, why is the expression still there? I still see something there. Let's see. I didn't remove the expression. I thought I did. So let me just break that expression. So delete expression. There we go. Maybe I must have undone, perhaps. So again, we have our slider, and then we have our file texture, and we're going to be connecting the translate X, because that's the only one that moves, into the frame extension. There we go. So now, if I move this, there we go. You can see that moves that left and right. So that's cool. Next thing we're going to do is duplicate this. Now I wonder if I duplicate this entire thing, if it will duplicate the, let me save this first. So file, save scene as. Let's see, scenes. Let's call it sample. Yeah, so I'm going to try just duplicating this control group with this. So I'm going to select the control group and the actual placement node here. And I'm going to do a duplicate special input connections. I wonder if it's going to recreate the entire network for me. Maybe I should select that also. So let's see, I got everything selected. So I'm going to go edit, duplicate. In the old days we used to be able to open all this stuff up in the hypershade. I don't think we can do that anymore. Maybe we can. Let's try something. No, I can't do that. I wonder if we can do it in the node editor though. Sorry, we're just going to go off on a tangent just for a quick second. Yes, we can. We can do this in the node editor. Good. Because basically, when you're duplicating input connections, which makes an exact copy, including all of the connections. So let me just add that group in here. So there you are. So I need this group, and I just need all this stuff here. This should work. So I'm going to go to edit, duplicate by type, or sorry, not delete, duplicate special, turn instance off, copy, duplicate input graph, and apply. Now it didn't work. You can see that all the connections are broken. Yeah, no, it didn't work. So undo. Alright, that's fine. So I'll just do the other one. Wishful thinking. Wishful thinking. Alright, so I'm gonna grab my eye though, my eye material, which I should call. So sorry, this is left, so left, I, RS. We should label each of these components too, so we don't get confused. And I'm going to, oh, we're not quite done yet though, we still need to bring in the alpha. So I'm going to grab the projection information, so that's the projection node, its placement, the texture, and the texture's placement. And I'm going to duplicate, so edit, and this is in the hypershade, duplicate shading network. That should have created an exact copy somewhere. So let me do this again. Sometimes I find you have to do it twice for some reason. So grab all that stuff, edit, duplicate shading network. I don't know why it's not doing it for me. Odd. Anyhow, okay, I'll just recreate this. It's not too bad. So so file, projection. And what we're going to do is layer this eyeball back over top of our base material. So we'll need an alpha for that. So again, with the alpha, it's not an animated sequence for the eye because the pupil moves within the shape. So let me grab that. Now you can see when I created a brand new one, and even if I duplicate it, we're going to have to do this anyway. But you know, I've got my own placement node. Makes it really inconvenient if I want to just animate some stuff around, or move some stuff around. Because basically I just want my eye to be controlled by the one placement node. So what we can do is we can have a projection for both the eye and its normal, and including the lid. So it'll just be one placement node control all four of those texture maps, which is again the eye alpha, the lids, and the lid alpha, so that we'll need 4 of these projection groups. And we're going to control it with the projection placement node. So I'm going to remove the projection placement node that just came in with the alpha, and I'm going to use the previous projection placement node that I had going on here. And to do this, I hear my little guy use up, so he might burst in here in a second, so I'm going to have to pause the recording. Let me see, so to connect this, we're going to use the connection editor, so I'm just going to shift, middle drag this onto the projection node, so the placement node onto the projection node. And we're going to be connecting the world inverse matrix, where are you here, into the placement matrix. So you'll see here now that well, as soon as I deleted that placement node, it removed that here, and now the alpha and everything's controlled through this one node. Now, unfortunately, we're not going to see this at the moment. I'm going to have to render this out, and we have to do a little bit of connecting here. So let me just go a little bit more, expand this out just a bit, and bring down my base material and the blend material. Alright, so we got the blend material here. So we have the base material on the top, and then we're going to take the eye material that we just created, and we're going to put that into the eye color. So let me just put this base material back on here. So if I were to render it, we have something that looks like this. Now you can see here if I turn up the blender, it's going to IPR at least for me. There we go. So if I turn up the blender, you can see that it's either going to be the base material or the eye. So the blend color, that gets that projection node which has the alpha in it. So I'm going to take that projection node and put it into the blend color. There we go. Perfect. Now you're probably wondering, well, it's got some black polka dots. And you would be right. It does have some black polka dots. That's because we had to recreate this from scratch, so we do have to go into the file texture, the placement node for that file texture first, and we're going to go and turn off wrap, U and V. Next thing you're probably going to say, well, what's with that gray, slightly discoloration around there? Again, that goes back to what I was mentioning on the actual texture itself. Where we have this default color. So if I make that black, there we go. So it is just like an alpha. So black is going to be transparent. If I were to go white, then it would just be whatever that default color is. So again, we just need this black. And once that's there, I can now, move this around. I could create a slider for this as well, just for the movement. So I got my eye that moves. I've got this that moves. Cool. And to do the lids, okay, we're running it's exactly the same process, except with the eyelids. Now again, my shading network, for some reason, probably has something to do with the labeling, because I didn't give everything unique names. It isn't duplicating. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just duplicate this network. Let's see if it'll work. Edit, duplicate, shading network. Yeah, no, it doesn't work. So I'm going to go in and export this out. So let me just grab everything here. Just these connections. And I'm going to go Edit, Export, Selected Network. Just make sure this has an ASCII file or binary. And you can see I did this last night as well. And then I'm just going to import that in. So File, Import, Test I. There you are. Cool. So that's brought it in up here. I'm just going to bring it down. And I'm going to open this up. Alright, now we should have more to it. Let me grab the placement node and expand it the other way. There we go. I got it. I got this here. And I'm just going to swap out these textures. So I got my eye. That's going to now be the blink. So the lids. Oh, that's interesting. There's a connection. Did it maybe also export out the connected elements? That would be cool if it did. And we're also going to bring in our alpha. So there we go, and use sequence. It did. It brought in. Now, unfortunately, it only brought in the actual slider. That's okay. We can make it work. So let me just put these two in the exact same place. So let's see here. So I got my box. Oops. Let me just go 9. Wrong one. Alright, let's do this. So 13. And what is that one? And negative 90. Alright, good stuff. Good stuff, that works now. And I'm just going to take this eye and put it here. Oh no, wrong box. Take this eye, put it here. Get rid of this guy. Label it. It's a little convoluted. You could just manually set it up twice if you wanted to. Exact same process, but since I got it here, I might as well use it. Which means that should work once I connect that in. So we got our lids. The only thing that doesn't work though is this alpha, because remember it was a still before. So I'm still going to have to go in to the slider, open up the connection editor, and we're going to have to do the exact same thing we did before, but with the blinks alpha. So translate X is going to be controlling the frame extension. Cool. So if I do an IPR now, so when that's on 1, there's no blink, and as I lower this down, there will be a blink. Just not, I can see it on this image happening. I think. Is it? No? Maybe it's not going to happen on this image. Let's see, make sure the connections are actually, so that's 4. Yeah, it's 4, so this is around 2 or 3. That should be 2 or 3. Okay, there we go. So it is working. We're just not seeing it here because we haven't connected it yet. So let me grab that blend material again, which is the head. There you are. And we're just going to make our new connection. So this is our label. So left eyelid, eyelid, eyelid. Why did I say R? Redshift. And I'm just going to drag and drop this into material 2. The alpha, I'm going to drag and drop that into the projection. Okay. Let's see. If I move this down now. There we go. Works. Right. Nice. So we got our blinks, and then we have our little eyelid that will, or eyeball that will move underneath the blink. Right, and that's all being put through one projection node. A little bit overly complicated, but it's not really. It's not really that bad when you think about it. Now to duplicate this, what I might want to do then is just save out the scene. So File, Save Scene As, Sample, I, and I'm going to import that entire scene, which has all of the connections, everything I've just done. So File, Import, Sample I, there you are. And we're going to delete one of the 2 heads. I could have actually deleted that when I saved it out, but that's fine. But now we've got 2 projection nodes in here. So one is going to be for one eye, and the other is going to be for the other eye. Oh wait, I got a bunch of projection nodes. Oh, you know what we didn't do? Yeah, we didn't do one thing. Here, let me just import new scene. Let me just open that eye sample. Okay, so it's kind of working, but it's kind of not exactly ideal. So, everything, works. This moves around underneath there. This blinks. But it is easy for us to actually separate the 2 textures, the 2 projections, right? We could separate the blink from the eye, because you can see here clearly now that this is a layered lid over top of the eyeball. So what I want to do is have the lids also controlled by the same projection node as the eye. So we're going to have to go in here, clean this up a little bit. So let's organize that. Let me just click on this button. Alright, so these are the lids. And where is my placement node for that? So this is the texture placement node. This is it. Now it's the control. Here it is here. So this is the placement node for the lids. And this is the placement node right here for the eye. So we just have to pick which one we want to control the other. So I think I'm going to have the eye control the lid. So I'm going to delete the lids placement node. And I just have to connect this to the alpha and the colors projection nodes. So there's 2 projection nodes right here. So shift middle drag it, and again we're just connecting translate X into the image, or actually sorry, world inverse matrix, world world inverse matrix. There it is right there. Alright, there it is, into the placement matrix. And we're going to do the exact same thing down here. So world inverse matrix into the placement matrix. There's an error that popped up, but let's see what happened. There we go. So now basically I have this one projection node that I can, scale and do stuff with and move it around and animate. I can create a control for it maybe. And everything stays together. So it just makes it a lot easier. Well, that's kind of cute. I can have some big giant wide eyes maybe. Some squash and stretch on the face. Alright, let's try to get that a bit more spherical. Alright, now I'm going to save it. So File, Save Scene As. Alright. And I'm going to import it. So import. And the reason why I'm doing this is so I don't have to reset up the right side manually, and which is what I did last night. So let's see here. Alright, so we got all these duplicates. One thing we're not going to need is a duplicate of the sphere. Let's get rid of that. Good idea to probably turn off namespaces, which I did do. Replaces the name I get when I have a duplicate of something, but we have to go through and relabel everything. But now we should just be able to go in and separate out. So we got our right eye, and we're going to have our left eye. There we got the two eyes. And then we're going to have our right and left blinks. There we go. Do I have IPR on? Let me start that. It's interesting. Why am I not? Oh yeah. No, it is working. It is working. It's just that we haven't connected it into the original blend material. So let's do that next. So I'm going to go into my hypershade. And this is all the stuff I just imported. So, and this is the duplicate. No, this is the original. This is the original head. And then these ones are the eyes and eyelids. I know these are the duplicates because it has the word replace in front of it. So let me grab both of these guys and bring them down. Let me clean this up. So I'm going to grab this. Do that. So this is the original network. I'm going to grab the duplicate, eye and eyelid, bring those down. There they are. And we're going to connect these into our network. So we got our blend material. And again, I want to go with the eye first. So that's this one. So that's why labeling is so important. And then the eyelid second. And then we just have to make sure we're connecting in those alpha channels. So let me open up the entire network now. Just minimize those with one and clean it up. There we go. Alright, so we have our duplicates. Here's one duplicate. So this is the eyelid. Yeah, where did the alpha go? Where did those alphas go? And let me just grab this guy. And let's see if we can find out. Here they are. Here they are here. Here's the alphas here. Let me get rid of the duplicate blend material. So they're there. They're there. They're just not easily accessible. Again, this is where labeling becomes very, very important. But these are the two guys that we need. So let me grab this and the head blend material, which is right here. And I'm just going to open these up. Show the, there we go. Alright. So again, we just have to connect our blend, our alphas in there. So we have a lid alpha and our eye alpha. So let's see, so this is the, and this is, again, luckily we labeled. So this lid alpha is going to go into the lids. Oh, you know what? I want to reverse this. It's important that the eyes obviously sit. Oh, I did do it right. Sorry, I wasn't looking at the right ones. It's early. I'm just waking up. So I'm going to go into the lids alpha. Connect that to the lids. There's an issue with my Redshift license. I don't know what's going on. And I'm going to take the I alpha and connect that to the I. There we go. Cool. Very cool. So again, these can move over the face. We can blink them. We can blink them asymmetrically. I'm going really slow, but you know, you can do it. It'll look nice and smooth, like what I and then we can move the eyes independently as well. Cool. Now, one last thing is that this is a projection, which means that it's projecting straight through your geometry, right? So if you had a nose that overlaps where this is, so if I bring up that render, right, so you have a big nose that's overlapping where those projections are, and it's seamless geometry. Also, if you see the object, that's frozen. See if I can open that up again. It's irritating. Right, so you get nice smooth, you get, you know, pretty smooth looking motion. That looks pretty good. Provided, you know, you do it within, you know, a decent amount of time. Like, I have 5 frames, so I probably want the blink to happen over like 10 frames maximum, you know, like 5 frames down, 5 frames up type of thing. And it should be pretty smooth. But you can see here that, you know, it's not projecting through the nose. And if I were to turn it around, it wouldn't be on the back. But at the moment, it is. So if I turn this around, you know, he's got a set of eyes on the back as well. So all we need to do is just go into our geometry, into the side view. Oops. Go into the side of your geometry. Select all the faces where you don't want the projection to show up on. And we're just going to select the base material and assign that. And that will get rid of the duplicates. So if we were to look at this, you can see here I put the base material back on the nose as well as on the back. So that way the projections only happen over this front area. Alright, well I guess that's it in a nutshell. Hopefully you're able to decipher some of these things. It's actually less complicated than it is once you start, making your first basic basic connections. What I'll do is I'll save out this just this sample scene, just so you can see these connections, or I'll bring it with me maybe on the Monday. And I've got to look into this Redshift thing. I'm a bit worried that I've lost my licensing, which would be the worst. So let me just save this as last thing before I end the recording. Because we imported this in, we might have some extra nodes that we don't need. So I'd probably want to go into my Hypershade, go to Edit, delete unused, delete unused nodes, just to clean it up in here. Get rid of any unused things from importing that scene in. Alright, so I'm going to just say that one more time. And I'm going to stop the recording there. So good luck with all those connections.